Okay, there's a little bit of an ad playing, of course. Let me get that. Okay, guys, how you guys doing? We got a pretty interesting show tonight. It's real important. I would love you guys, if you could, to please share this on any social media you guys might have, because it's so important that we get the word out here about that stuff. I'm going to do it myself as well right now. I'm going to share it to all the comic book groups I'm in, which is a lot, really fast. How you guys doing in the chat? Just give me a couple minutes. I'm here with Randy. I'll get to him in a second. Just let me share this really fast. Give me a second. Hey guys. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to give you a brief idea of what's going on here and the importance of it and everything. So in December, January time, there was a theft of pretty much the greatest, highest graded Batman collection in the world, as far as I know. And they stole pretty much all of it. And it traveled across the country from Florida over to this state. I, crazy enough, got involved. I saw some of the books. So, you know, I had been in contact with Randy, who is the owner, Randy Lawrence, and, you know, telling him, hey, you know, I saw these books and so and he recently called me due to the court case and all that. I don't know how much we can talk about, and said, you know, we might need you and stuff like that, and asked if he could be on the show. And I said, of course, let me get, you know, do as much as I can to get it out there so everyone knows what's going on. There's a lot of people in the chat already that know kind of what's going on. But again, I would really love you guys to share this information. We want to get it out there so that if the books are seen, they know where to go. Now, I have all the contact information below in the description. I mean, you know, a lot of people feel bad and they want to call Randy and say, hey, you know, we feel bad. And he's been getting calls for 6 months of from Europe and all over. Oh, this is a horrible thing. But look, honestly, if you could keep it to, you know, tips and stuff like that, there's different numbers there and so on. If you hear anything, you go ahead and contact him or the police or whatever. But I'm going to honestly, I'm going to hand it over to Randy. But before I do that, I want you to know that with this new Google Hangouts, stuff's going weird with Google Hangouts now. So there might be a little pixelation and stuff like that, but you can hear Randy just fine. And I'm going to go ahead and lock on his screen and let him just kind of tell the story, where it's at, what's going on, what you guys can do, everything he can. He's a really great guy. He spent entire life collecting this stuff. I feel for him. This is about us as a comic book community, spreading the word, the video, whatever you can to get him his books back. It's just that simple, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Mr. Lawrence. Randy, how you doing, bud?
Hey, Bill. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So go for it. I mean, what, you want to just start right from the beginning? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the story, it's really a crazy one. And unfortunately, I can't really get into so much detail because it is an ongoing investigation. It's been going on now for going on 6 months. But yeah, I could give you a little history of me and how it all started. And the crazy part of the whole story, which really has never even come into play yet, is that this really began in like 1942, believe it or not. My dad was born in 1935, and he, when he was probably about 5, started collecting comics. Loved Marvel Mystery and Superman, Batman, Green Lantern. So he was out there buying these books for 10 cents, and which was a lot of money at the day. And but he was also a very up until his death. He's no longer with us, but he was a collector. And knowing him as I did, he was probably one of those boys that put his books away in such great condition, like the books that I had in my collection, that you always were amazed. How did these books, 70-year-old books, how do they still have white pages and sharp corners? My father was one of those boys, and he had a pretty big collection, and he used to keep his books in big boxes under his bed. And in 1942, while he was at school one day, there was a knock at the door. You know, there were paper drives during the war. And believe it or not, my grandmother gave away my father's entire comic book collection to a guy at the door. And my father came home one day and everything was gone. So I'm glad he's not here to see what I'm going through, because he'd be basically going through the same thing twice. But it's wild how so many years later, not from a family member, thank God, but I lost, all my precious jewels too. So because of that, he was the one who really got me started. I woke up on a Sunday morning in 1966, and on the side of the bed on the floor was a Batman 181 and I believe it was Spidey 38. As well as the funnies from the Daily News, even though on Saturday nights you used to be able to go out and buy half the time New York Times in New York, and then you'd pick up the second half on Sunday. And he would buy the Daily News, not because he read the paper, but because it had the funnies, and he always liked them as a kid. And I woke up, and the first Poison Ivy was my first book. And he continued to do that every Sunday. And before I knew it, I had a major stack of comics. I got really into it, got into Batman and Spider-Man, and I had so many comics, I decided to start collecting comics. And I was at the comic store every Wednesday buying everything, whether I read it or not. And of course, there was no CGC or anything back in those days, so you always thought you were getting the greatest comic in the best condition. No one was looking at staple pulls or little creases or... but I remember buying, like I told you, I remember buying Hulk 181 on the newsstand for 20 cents. And when CGC came out, I still had a lot of my original books. It was a 9.6. I did pretty good on that. But like a lot of people, who were buying books back in the 70s, you want to start getting into how the hobby started, where comics really began, and start getting those early actions and detectives and Batman and Spider-Man were always my favorite, and my collection was pretty vast at one point. I had full runs of Spider-Man AF-15 through 500, Avengers, X-Men. I had everything, and at that point, when I was probably about my mid-20s, I started, dealing with Metropolis and Stephen Fischler before Vinny was there, and starting to spend serious money on books. Again, before any CGC was around, everything was just kept raw in Mylars or really plastic bags and boards back then. And I sold everything. I want to give a shout out to my friend Doug Schmel over at Pedigree Comics. I sold majority of my original collection through Doug. I had probably one of the biggest Harvey collections. I sold some through Heritage, some through Comic Link. But most of them was sold through Pedigree, and Doug was the one who sold my entire Spidey collection. And at that point, I had already been really seriously into Batman and Detective, and decided to go narrow and deep, and really just collect those two titles. I even closed my IRA and put all that money into
oh my God,
into these Bats and Detectives, because I figured watching these books going up in value, I was going to do better in my comics than I was in the IRA. And I did do that. I closed the IRA. I paid the penalty for doing so. I paid the taxes, and all that money went into these books. So over the course of the years, I'm on the CGC registry as, it's funny, I never had it in my name. It's still there. It's under Alfred Pennyworth, which it was my secret
pen name.
Entity. And it's still there, so you can see all the books, and it is the #1 rated Batman and detective collection on the CGC registry. I've been keeping my books for the last, I moved to Florida from New York about 15 years ago. And since New York and into Florida, I've always kept my books in storage facilities, air temperature controlled facilities. I've never had a problem. They were always the same. They always had those chicken wire tops, ceilings, in case there was a fire or something, so the sprinklers could put everything out. But I always had my boxes covered in tarps to protect them. But I've never, ever had a problem. And when I moved to Florida, I don't know if anybody of your listeners are in the area, but I used to keep them at a facility in Deerfield Beach, and I got tired of driving a half hour all the time because I would go to my unit, 3-4 times a week, because it's also how I was making a living. I was constantly upgrading. I would sell it. I had a lot of doubles, so I was always selling things and, going back and forth to the unit. I got tired of doing that, and I moved to this facility closer to me in March. And the robbery went down in December, and it's been pretty much a nightmare. My life's been turned upside down. As I said, all my money's really been put into these books. I was watching the values of these books going up like crazy. Very happy with all the decisions I made. A lot of my books are the single highest graded copies. I have out of the 450 comics that were taken, they did leave me some, which was nice of them. And I got those out of there pretty quickly. But there are about 130 pedigrees out of the 450 that were stolen. Some pretty awesome stuff. And I walked into the unit in January 8th. And I noticed, I had not only the comics were in there, but a lot of crap, a lot of boxes, all my sideshow boxes for all the statues that are all over my place. Those big, tremendous boxes are in there. And I noticed one of the boxes was like a little moved. I knew it wasn't the way I left it. So I fixed it. And then I was there that day to put some stuff away. And I took the tarp off the first pile and opened up the box, and it was empty. And
so they undid it, took it out, covered it back up.
They not only did they make it look like it hadn't been touched, but I had like high school yearbooks sitting around in the thing. They found them and they put those in the CGC boxes to make them feel like they still had weight. So when I opened the first box, it was empty. I opened the second box, my yearbooks were in there. And these were boxes that were, filled to capacity with, depending on the width of the holder, you could fit probably 30 something books, 35 books in a CGC.
The big box,
or the carry boxes. So the first 2 boxes I opened were completely empty, and all I really remember is letting out some sort of primal scream, like a wounded animal being hit by a car. I don't even know what came out of me, but it was a horrific experience. And I then proceeded to just start ripping off the box tops to find 60% of my collection was gone.
So they cherry picked everything. Is that what you're saying?
You know what? I think, the guys, which I'll get into as best I can, it's a father and son team that live here in West Palm Beach. I don't think they really knew jack shit about comic books. Either they, again, I can't talk about it. I don't know if they lucked out or they knew what was going on, which is being investigated right now. There's a lot going on, and I really wish I'd be happy to come back when hopefully this is solved and really tell the full story. But to some degree, I think they cherry picked, but to other degrees, not at all.
They went after the first 50 of each set, or
No, they took all my Golden Age stuff. They didn't leave me one Golden Age book.
So they took all the 10 centers.
They took all the Golden Age stuff, and there were certain issues which I again won't say which ones because I certainly don't want them to know what the hell they have. But there were boxes that were at one time filled that was still, you know, pretty filled, but 1 or 2 books had been taken out. So they either got the knowledge from somebody else, because I don't think, like I said, they knew what they were doing, or they had a Overstreet guide with them, or who knows. But they did, to some degree, at one point, cherry pick. But at the beginning, I think they were looking at 9/8s, 9/6s. You know, stupidly, they didn't know that I had a lot of 9/4/5s and 6/0s that are worth thousands of dollars too. You know, and they left a lot of good stuff. Thank God, they didn't get everything. But yeah, so I went through the channels at the very beginning. Got the police involved, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office here in Boca Raton. I want to give a shout out to Sergeant Michael Tramonte and his team. He's been my go-to guy. According to him, he's never talked to a victim ever, and he's been on the force for a long time. He's never talked to a victim as much as he talks to me. We talk daily, and that's been the case with everybody that's involved, whether it's the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office or the Mesa County Police Department, the Phoenix Police Department, and, you know, and the FBI is, I can't really get into that, but they're doing some investigating. So they're involved as well, which is an experience to deal with too.
So let's just, okay. So they took the books. Well, for right now, they only know of one person, I think, that got arrested out here.
Right. That's well, the crazy part, not to interrupt, the crazy part is that I realized this on January 8th. And after Sergeant Tramonte doing the work over there, by, I guess, checking out the surveillance video of the storage facility, they were able to come up with, they found out, basically, well, before that happened, the kid, Philip Weisbauer, and I'll be happy, I mean, it's public knowledge, his pictures online. You could find it. You could Google this story, and I'll show you. I mean, this is the genius that got arrested in Arizona.
I had the pleasure of meeting him.
Right. So what ended up, before you met him, right around that time, I sent, as soon as I knew what was going on and what had gone down, I sent an email to all my dealer friends, which I'll give shout outs to later. All to Heritage, to Comic Link, to CGC, to anybody and everybody to know what happened. And the word spread. They spread the word. My friend Danielle Smith, the Nerdy Girl Comics, she was nice enough to blog it, which I think is how you really saw you saw her blog through some whatever. Yeah. She posted my original letter that I had sent to her, and it was amazing. I mean, in a matter of hours from that happening, which was less than 24 hours from my realizing the books were gone, I was getting calls from London and Rome, Paris, total strangers, you know, were calling to, again, say they're sorry, they'll be on the lookout. It was amazing to me how social media, I mean, I thank God I've never been involved in anything dealing with social media on such a level, but it was incredible how fast this spread like wildfire. And at that point, I didn't, you know, it got in the hands of everybody in the world, and I was getting calls all that day. That next day, I got out and about, and I printed out a list of all the missing books, their grades, their CGC numbers, all that stuff. And I went to all the local stores, local comic book stores. I mailed it to everybody, all the dealers, so everybody knew exactly, you know, I didn't know if someone was walking around with them, if someone was going to go to a comic show, a convention. I didn't know what was going down. And that night, the phone didn't stop ringing, and I couldn't take any more of these calls, and I had a splitting headache. I tried to sleep. I couldn't sleep. And about 10:30 at night, it was like 24 hours after the robbery, I got a call from my hero, Mike Banks, over at Samurai Comics in Phoenix. He left me a message because I didn't take the call, introducing himself and telling me that 5 of my comics had walked into his store that day. And of course, it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night here in Florida. And he and I spent the next 3 or 4 hours on the phone trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And, you know, he had his surveillance video of this Philip Weisbauer coming into his store trying to sell the 5 books. You know, the 5 books, they were all consecutive numbers for the most part. You know, he came into your store that you were working at Gotham City at the time. He came into you before he went to Samurai. There was a Batman 5, 6, 7, 8, and a 37. The 5 was a 9.2. The 6 was a 9.4. The 7 was a 9.2. The 8 is an 8.0, and the 37's an 8.5. I mean, they were beautiful, beautiful books.
So, yeah, like just on my end, I was working at that shop, and I remember, I'll never forget that day because I got called up to boss Kevin over there. He said, check these out. And I went and looked, and I had no idea about the stolen books at all. So I didn't know yet. And I saw them, and I saw one that well, first of all, I was in amazement because I would look at the books, I look at the kid, look at the books, because it's like walking into the store with a Lamborghini. You don't walk into a store with those books. And I thought they were fake too, because I was like, there's no way. This is the highest graded books I've ever seen in my life of that type of book. And there was a couple things that I noticed that were really odd. I noticed that one of them was conserved or something like that.
The 5, they had it wasn't a blue label, it was
a blue label, like 9.6 or something. I'm like, my God, what is that?
The staples. It was something with the staples.
Yeah,
I think one staple had been replaced or something, or something, and they gave it a conserved label. That was the only one that wasn't blue label.
So it was really fishy. And then of course I just kind of started my channel here, you know, about 6 months in, and I did a show that night, and I said, you know, it's the craziest thing. I saw the most incredible Batmans today. And one of the people that's in the chat right now, you can thank him too, is Comic Books NYC. So we were talking at that time, and he had messaged me, look, Bill, I heard those could be stolen. And I said, okay. And then check YouTube, or here's a list of Nerdy Girl. Then I went and checked Nerdy Girl. And then I basically found the list, you know, your list with your number. And I called the shop owner. I said, look, I'm going to call this guy. And I called him. And then, you know, I told you, look, they're at Gotham City. You need to call Kevin. He's the owner. It's all on camera. Here's his number and all that. And we went from there. We talked for hours, you and I, for a while. And it's just, and then the next day they did the raid at the other shop. I wish I had known the day before, because I would have called the cops. But I mean, you can see the books, but if you don't know, you can't just call the cops on somebody walking in the.
And, you know, the other key thing is that nobody with any sort of brains walks into a comic store, $125,000 worth of books, and just being 5 books.
Yeah, I knew that. I mean,
a comic store doesn't have that kind of money sitting around. Probably doesn't even have that kind of money. If, you know, the average comic store either has a few CGC books here and there, sometimes they're probably on consignment, or if they're selling Golden Age books or Silver Age books, they're not in great shape. They're in the glass, you know, they're behind the counter, or they're really not, they're not 9.4, 9.6, 9.8 material. So, and again,
Randy,
as you remember, the kid had no idea. He didn't even have prices on. Like, there's nobody walks in with a $50,000, $60,000 comic and says, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000.
No, they wouldn't. He wouldn't even say a number. He would not say anything.
And he had at Samurai, he had some ridiculous number. So what ended up happening is, you know, we ended up, Mike Banks was, he was so smart. I mean, he knew what was stolen, and he ended up asking this kid about a bunch of other books that he didn't have. The kid, you know, the kid has changed his story so many times already. Originally, it was an inheritance.
That's what he told us.
Which is another crazy part of the story is that the kid was only, you know, his parents are divorced. His mother lives in Fountain. What is it? Fountain Hills.
Fountain Hills, yeah.
His mother lives in Fountain Hills. His father lives here, and he was only in Arizona because his stepfather shot and killed himself 3 days before. So he was coming there for a funeral.
Now, is that true, or is that?
Yeah. No, that's true.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there's already a suicide now in the story. So yeah, the father killed himself, and the kid was coming out for the funeral. So I guess the father or both of them figured out, let's take a few of these books out to Arizona. We can't sell them in Florida right now; they're probably hot, and let's try and sell them and see what we can do in Arizona. And when Mike told me he saw them, you know, he was trying to work out something to get the kid back in the store, I think. I looked up, there was I think an Ace Comic Con going on in Glendon that weekend.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was, I didn't know about the father killing himself. All I knew is this kid was in Arizona. So I figured he was going to the show. So the cops, you know, we were on the phone with the cops and two precincts when a robbery takes place in one state, and then another crime is committed in another state where I guess it originates. Both law enforcement teams have to get together to work out what they're going to do. And I was only afraid he was going to go to the show, and the Arizona police were like, this. I think this was on a Wednesday. And the police were going to try and work something out for Friday. And I was like, no, you can't wait. This kid gets to the show, these books are going to be gone. We got to do something.
Randy, I'm trying to keep up with the chat a little bit. Someone asked if the guy got caught, and is he not talking? Now, I don't know if we can really talk about that or not.
I'll get into as much as the whole thing with him. So long story short with that is that I don't want to get into the details, but Mike Banks worked out with the
Mesa Police.
I think it was a Mesa County. I think it was
the Mesa Police Department. Yeah,
the Mesa Police Department. They worked out a sting, and this kid was arrested. It was crazy. They weren't sure if he had everything in his trunk of his car. They didn't know what he had. You saw 5 books.
That's all I saw.
5 books They didn't know if 450 comics were with him. They had no idea, but he had already crossed state lines with stolen goods. So he was already in trouble. So there was a helicopter following him. There were undercover cars. I mean, it was a whole scene, and they arrested him, and all they did get was 5 books, which are still in Arizona in evidence. I still don't even have those back. But so he was arrested with those books. And like we said, he started off saying it was an inheritance. And then when they questioned him, he lawyered up. He's already gone through, he's on his 3rd attorney now. And he's facing like 4 to 12 years right now. But in my opinion, is, again, not releasing anything that's out of school. These books are in his father's possession. His father has been arrested. His name is Tom Weisbauer. This is in my opinion. I'm not telling anything that's not, I'm not releasing any information that they're working on. But his father's been arrested twice before this for stealing, for stolen goods. I believe one of them was in a storage facility. I'm not sure. So he's got this down, but he keeps getting arrested but not convicted. But now his son's up Schitt's Creek. And again, I'm just trying to get the books back. We're all trying. That's all we all want. The police, the prosecutor in Arizona. We just want the books returned. I went on Facebook to his family members. I reached out, I didn't reach out to the kid directly, but to his aunts, his cousins, his girlfriend. I sent messages, trying to help him out, because if they end up being Florida charges, I can not press charges on that.
So what you're saying is, Randy, and look, everybody spread the word. I know some people live in Florida, whatever. What you're saying though is that if you get, at least in Florida, if there was a chance for you to get all the books back, you would be fine with just no charges. Just give me my book.
If there are Florida charges, I know that I can probably, not press charges or push that nothing happens to him or his father, But in Arizona, it's a different case. I have no say there. And I don't know if it's like Arizona wants their pound of flesh, but I know the prosecutor has been working hard with his attorneys trying to get this kid to wise up. He's like 30, 31 years old. He's got a 14-month-old kid. He's not married. I'm sure he wants to live a life, and I'm sure he wants to see his kid grow up, but that can't happen unless he gives back all the stuff. So either he's going to have to, I don't know, give up his dad, or his dad's going to have to be some sort of decent human being and help out his son.
Well, maybe, maybe if they understood, Randy, that no matter what they do, the best option is to give the books back and walk away, because there is no way in hell, not for this year, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, they will ever be able to sell those books.
They also don't know. They also don't know that I have images of the books pre-CGC case and CGC case. So, they all have markings. They all have stuff going on them, so I, in and out of a case, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They'll be found the way they walked into that store. It was a red flag. They're red flags, These books do not come along. Just like you, and just like, Mike Banks' manager, Mike wasn't in the store when the kid walked in. There was surveillance video in your store, in their store. So this kid, the other guy, just like you, he said, "Wow, where'd you get these?" You just don't see them. And if you do see them, they're in a heritage auction for a lot of money, a Comic Link auction, a Comic Connect auction. They don't walk into.
It's like seeing an Action Comics 9.0 walk in your store. It's the same thing. We were both, me and Kevin, looked at each other like, "What are we?" We were in shock. You don't know what to say when that walks into your store. It's amazing, and it really bothers me, Randy, to be honest with you, because I spent, you spent your whole life, I get it, but I spent about 20 years, 10 years deep on my X-Men collection. I mean, it took me 10 years to get it all signed, get every book high grade, and if I lost it, I would be lost. Like you were saying, you screamed out loud, and I mean, it's my retirement. Just as you said, you liquidated your books, you liquidated your IRA. This was your baby. This is your one love.
Yeah, it's my nest egg. It's definitely my nest egg. And
that's how I feel. So I want to do whatever I can.
I'm worried. I don't know how this guy's taking care of the books. I don't know if they're in a hot box. I don't know if they're in a store. I don't know where they are. And it's and the father. As I don't want to start throwing slang words or things around, but the books could be miraculously returned too, and he would be free and clear as well. I think they have to realize that these books, they just can't be sold, and somehow they need to be returned. He needs to help his son out. His son's looking at all. And again, I don't know what FBI is doing. I don't know what they're going to come up with, if anything. But or I can't speak about it. But this, like I said, this kid's looking at 4 to 12 years, and if he thinks he's getting off for probation, he's got to, he's in for a big surprise, because he's crossing state lines with stolen goods with the attempt to sell, and the value is over $100,000. So that's a whole nother count. So that puts it at, like, I think if my memory serves me correct, it's like 4 to 12 years. So this guy's in trouble, and he can work something out, I'm sure. The prosecuting team is working on, offering a plea deal if the books could be, it has to be 100% of everything that was taken in the same condition that they were taken in, and let's try and put this thing to bed. And because it's a nightmare. It's been, for me, it's every day for the last almost 6 months. This is all I think about. I don't sleep. It's like, you're trying to, like, what I'm 59 years old. Where am I, where am I can't start over trying to, live a life, and I can never start collecting again. You gotta, at least these kind of books. And, I'm just hoping for the best. That's all I can do. I've been very involved. I've been proactive, like I've never been on anything before in my life. I call everybody, like I said, daily. I speak to all the parties involved. I've helped the team out. I've had ideas, I think from watching too many cop shows over the years. I've had a lot of thoughts, a lot of things, ideas I had ended up, going into the investigation. But there's just, I'm about to. I'm thinking of suing civilly. I don't want to be an OJ and have a thing. They can have something over their heads for the rest of their lives too. But that doesn't serve any purpose if they don't have a pot to piss in. And it just needs to be put in reverse. So you got any of your listeners? They can look at my CGC registry.
So your CGC registry is Alfred Pennyworth?
Yes, it's Alfred Pennyworth. Everything's on there. Again, everything is on there, not just the books that were taken. But I'd be happy, I can always supply you with a list of the actual stolen books, the 445 that are.
Now, is it easy for you to say, like, look, anyway, if you see an early Batman or an early detective and they're high grade, and there's CGC, I mean, consider that might be his. I mean,
again, not to make the thieves any more knowledgeable than they are, but like all these books, not everybody, that goes onto the CGC register, a lot of people that have great collections. I'm sure there might even be a better collection than mine that's not on the registry. A lot of people go on the registry just to show everybody what great stuff is out there. And then a lot of people go on there to protect themselves. And that's what I did. CGC knows they were my books, but up until right now, tonight, I've never said, what my account, the name of my account is.
Yeah, no one knew you were Alfred.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it to like say, hey, look, world, I got this great stuff. I was doing it to protect myself. So every book is really under my name. And I guess that's how they were proven, the 5 books that were taken at the arrest, that they are under my name. And again, like I said, in and out of the case, they're known to be mine. So there's really I don't care if these guys decide, okay, I'll go to jail for 8 years, I'll come out, I'll have all these books and I'll sell them and make a bloody fortune. They really can't be sold because everybody who's going to deal with books on that end is on the lookout. And I know many dealers that have books stolen at conventions. I know people, art dealers that have art stolen, and eventually sometimes they try to sell it and they get, even if the person who still stole the merchandise, whether it's mine or somebody else's, and they sell it to some other schmuck who has no idea what's going on, that guy goes to sell it one day down the road, it's going to get confiscated from him. And he's going to be out the money, whatever he paid to buy the art of the books, because it's stolen. So he'd have to go back and chase the original seller, try and get his money back, which would never happen.
There's a couple things I wanted to say. There's some of us think, a lot of people are saying it was in a storage unit. I know a lot personally myself. I know a lot of big time collectors on the west side, the West Coast. And they all use storage units too. The air-cooled video camera. So it's not an abnormal thing for people to keep their collections in a storage unit. Another person asked,
it takes up a lot of room in your house.
Yeah.
I live in a 3-bedroom apartment, so I mean and one of the rooms is my office that I'm in now. So to fill up the whole of the bedroom with boxes, and then you take a chance either way. But like I said, after 35 years of doing it and not having had any problem. But, I can't get into details, but this is a scam. This guy, this father, it's bad enough that he gets his son involved in this lifestyle, but it's a scam. And you really got to be careful and just learn from my mistakes, I guess, to some degree.
So you said that they initially valued it at 1.4. Someone was asking about the value, and the newspapers, they were saying 1.4.
Yeah, that was what I originally had told everybody when I was starting to do the initial, like the day, when this whole thing went down, I I've been in on every TV station here in Florida, which I'm sure has gone cross country, you know, on their affiliates. I've been in every newspaper. I've been in the New York Times. There's been articles about it. It's been in European newspapers. It's really gone all over the world. But at that point, I was able to calculate it. It's probably about 2.3 million what's stolen.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's probably more realistic, since what I saw alone was a couple 100,000.
Yeah, those 5 books were about 125,000.
And the other thing is, what was I going to say here? Someone was saying something and I lost it.
And insurance, I see somebody's asking about insurance. You know, in this world, you know, and this type of stuff, you can't really get a blanket policy. You really have to insure each book individually. And it would have been such big money that it just, and I never had a problem. So I never thought to insure. So no, there, you know, you get the insurance, you take out insurance at these storage units, but they only let you get some small amount. I think the most insurance you can get is, I think $5,000. And they tell, and these storage facilities, they're really jerks about the whole thing too. You got to read the fine print, because I've been in probably 4 or 5 different storage units since I started housing my stuff in New York, in Queens, in Manhattan, and here in Florida. You know, these agreements basically say that they're not responsible for any negligence on their part.
How can they get away with that? I don't understand.
They do. You know, you know, you just, because the majority of people, Bill, you know, what are they putting in their storage units? They're putting their Christmas tree, their fake Christmas tree. They're putting in their clothes, or if they're moving furniture they can't use. There's really crap in storage units for the most part. It's not, or, you know, like dentists and doctors, they put their files, their old files in these places. So it's not, there's not really, it's not really a reason to have such expensive things in there. And they don't have cameras. 9 out of 10 of these places don't have cameras down the rows. So, but there are cameras at the entrances, at the stairwells, at the elevators. So there are, in this case as well, there is proof of what went down in my storage facility.
Let me ask you this: was there fingerprints or, you know?
Oh, that's a funny story. I mean, there were prints. There were a bunch of prints that I won't get into right now. But your viewers, if they know him, and I think I told you the story, it was very funny. The first print they found in the room, I mean, CSI came, which is really wild. You know, after watching, like I said, all these cop shows, this guy came for 2.5 hours, and to watch these guys work, finding sweat drips and DNA and fingerprints and footprints, and I mean, just watching how they get this stuff off of metal, off of walls, on dust. I mean, just wild stuff. So they called me, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office called me. We found the print, and we think you know who it is, and we're going to send you his picture. He's a comic book dealer, and I was like, wow, really? I was like, I got nervous, and he sent me an email, and the picture came up. It was Harley Yee. If I don't know if you, I know you know him, but I don't know if your viewers know him. Harley's and I have known each other a long time. He's he's one of the guys I'm giving a shout out to tonight as well. You know, his print was on one of the boxes, the CGC boxes, and I was like, listen, there's no way Harley took my stuff. First of all, he lives in Michigan. Second of all, no, he doesn't know where my place is. And not to make it, Harley is not climbing 9 feet in the air to climb over a wall. And they alerted Harley, and he was like, I know about it, but I certainly had nothing to do with it. And I know how his print got on this box. You know, it was a box that I got from another dealer that had come from Harley. So it's amazing how they were able to even get a fingerprint off a cardboard box, which is, I didn't even think that could be done.
From a long time ago, too.
From a long time ago. Yeah, just this, unbelievable.
Now, can you talk about the situation at the unit, how they got in and stuff, or you're not allowed to talk about that?
Well, I don't want to talk about that. I mean, they got in legally. I could say that. They were in the facility legally. but I can't get into the details because that's part of the ongoing investigation.
Okay.
But like I said, we have surveillance video of how it went down and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's enough proof that I think, you know, we have a trial set right now for the middle of October. I hope it doesn't get to that point. I hope these guys wise up and this kid decides he really doesn't want to spend the next good years of his life in a state penitentiary. But that'll all come up. That'll all come out. Like I said, he's changed his story so many times that, and they're all provable. You know, just so I could show you this, I happen to have this here because of the story. This is my bat. I don't know if you see it. It's my bat 14. It's a 7.5. I thought it could get an upgrade, but it didn't. But I only have this because I was in my room a few weeks before the robbery went down, because there had been a sale on a bat 14, a 7.5, for a lot more than I had paid for mine. So I was hoping I could maybe get it pressed and get an upgrade. So I went to get it out of the box, and that was before the robbery, and it was stuffed in that box numerically. So I saw the number 5, 6, 7, 8. I know they were all in that room. So any stories, they've been coming up with crazy stories where they found these 5 books. It's all provable. It's all bullshit, you know, and they're just burying themselves. And that's why I still have the 14 in my possession. Thank God that I took that one out. And yeah, so I saw all the books that were confiscated. They were in my room. They weren't anywhere else. They weren't any part of any inheritance and all the other ridiculous stories they're coming up with. But that's all I've already talked about all those stories on TV, and it's been on all the newspapers of what really went down. But the more in-depth stuff, it's really, I don't want to screw up anybody's investigation. And so I really can't go into more detail right now, but
so basically, you know, for you though, Randy, this shows about you and your situation. So you guys that are watching, please, you know, you're all over the country. You're all over some of you from the, you know, international. Please share this video with, you know, I'm part of like 10 different comic book groups on Facebook, you know. Share it. Go to your comic book store. Look, if you hear anything, if you see anything, come back. And all the stuff below to contact Randy's, his email, the police. What else do we have on there? I think
I'll say, listen, if anybody's in Florida and they see stuff up for sale, or some guy trying to sell books here in Florida, the number, Bill's given the number for Sergeant Mike Tramonte here at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. He's my go-to guy, and Detective Woody on his staff. They've been terrific, and they would love to hear from you if you got some information. Doug Mangum, Bill's giving you his name as well. He's the prosecutor in Arizona, Maricopa County, and any information that could help him out would be helpful. I'd like to just take a second to give a shout out. You know, a lot of dealers have, you know, not that they feel for me, but because they've gone through stuff like this as well. But they've really had, you know, thank God, a lot of thank Gods. As much as the bad stuff's going on, I do a lot of deals with a lot of great dealers. They've had, you know, payout situations, and they've had a lot of patience with me since this situation went down, because I don't have my doubles, I don't have my undercopies to sell to get the upgrade. So I want to, and they've also written letters on my behalf for the case to be able to prove a lot of points. So I want to give a shout out to my buddy Doug Schmel over at Pedigree Comics. And you guys, if you're looking for good books, these are guys that you can find great stuff through as well. Doug Schmel, Pedigree Comics. Greg Reese at Reese's Rare Comics, my pal. Harley Yee, as we've talked about. CGC, great group of guys. All my books are in their cases. Joe Vernault over at JHV. Dan Gallo. Tom Wilson at Collectors Comics. Jamie Graham at Graham Cracker Comics. I want to thank Aaron White, Jim Halpern over at Heritage. They've been terrific. Yeah, those guys have just been, you know, my go-to saviors so far up to this point. And so if you got, like I said, just a shout out for them. They have great stuff from Silver Age to Golden Age. If you guys have never heard any of them, you should check out their sites, find them at shows. Yeah, that's where it's pretty much at, Bill. You know, it's a horrible, horrible situation. I don't wish what I'm going through on anybody. It's just, you know what? You get these books, and it's like, you know, you look at them, you have them, they're in these cases, you can't read them, but you're just so happy that you have them, and you're proud of your investments, and you get so excited when they go up in value. And you know, it's just such a disgusting situation that such people that exist, that they could break into somebody's unit and steal their life. You know, it's just horrible. It's just horrible. You know, that you know, I just can't fathom being that kind of person, or how you put your head on the pillow at night and sleep knowing that you've done this to somebody else. Just, you know, get a job, get a real job. You know,
well, unfortunately, there's good and bad, Randy. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad.
It's the world we live in. It's unfortunate.
But they have a chance. And if for some reason the title of this video gets to one of them or anyone involved, know that if the books miraculously appear somewhere, it's over. You know, you don't have to worry about anything. Even if you yourself, the thief, I'm just saying possibly, contacted Randy and said, look, you know, go to a payphone. I don't care. I want to give you the books back. Let's squash this, because I know, you know, I know it's a crazy thing to think, but, you know, anything's possible. There's nothing they can do with these books. Bring this guy back to life. It's so frustrating. I don't know. There's nothing more I can do except this video to help you. Besides,
no, I appreciate all your help. You know, and I can, you know, and I'll even talk to them. You know, it's like I can understand. I'm not a thief. Thank God, I've never been a thief. But to have pulled this off, you know, you got to say, wow, I got all this stuff. It's worth all this money, and you think you've got such a, you know, a boatload of cash available, but it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to, you know, you're only going to get caught somewhere else down the road.
Yeah, so like Mona Lisa.
I give a shout out to Philip Weisbauer. I mean, you know, I don't feel bad for him because he did a stupid thing, you know, and I'm sure this wasn't the first time he did something like this with his father. But I give a shout out to him. You know, he doesn't want his baby to grow up without a father, you know, and, you know, do the right thing. Like, you know, you screwed up. You got caught. I'm sure they weren't expecting to find a victim like me. You know, I'm sure they never in them. And I'm sure in his wildest dreams, this kid, Philip, didn't expect to walk into a comic book store and 24 hours later be arrested. You know, it's like, it's just this comic book community of ours. It's so tight knit, and it's such as much as it's global, it's so small, and it's just unbelievable how what's gone down, what's happened has happened. So, and again, to his father, who I am no fan of, obviously, but, you know, wise up, help your kid, you know, have somebody else return the stuff. You know, you won't get in trouble. Just give the shit back. I'll go on with my life. You go on with yours. You know, go rob from somebody else. You know, I don't know what, you know.
Have you had a chance, Randy, to speak to the son? Will they let you speak to him?
No, you know, I was when I had to fly out, believe it or not, about 3 weeks ago. He asked for there was a motion filed. He wanted to come back to Florida awaiting trial, and I couldn't let that happen. So I had to borrow money, believe it or not. And I flew out to Phoenix, you know, to speak to the judge for, I think it was 9 minutes. I flew cross country to let it be known that this kid needs to realize what kind of trouble he's in, and he can't have the luxury of coming home and drinking with his buddies and walking on the streets and acting like it's no big deal until October. You know, and the judge, there had already been a decree when he was originally arrested that he couldn't leave the state without permission. So he filed it. It was denied. He's pretty much going to be stuck there until trial. But again, you know, I could just say, you know, wise up, wise up. It's his outcome could be a lot better than it is. And, you know,
yeah,
I wouldn't want to be caught in a state penitentiary in the showers if I was him, you know? So,
you know, someone asked, how do they know they were there? Well, that's something that he can't talk about right now.
I could just say that in my heart of hearts, I can't talk about the information we have or what, you know, what the police are working on. But I could tell you in my heart of hearts, these two guys did it. There's more than enough proof, circumstantially as well. There's just an abundance of proof that they did it. There's a history of them doing this before, or, you know, there's just, I know, and the fact that he showed up with the books in Arizona for sale, you know, just as the icing on the cake, you know.
And you know, the truth of the matter is that the son, he's arrested. He had 5 books. The problem here, guys, is that we need to find the other 400 books. So
445 books.
404. So there's 4. Oh God.
450. And we got 5.
So 445 books are out there. The possibility is pretty strong that they're in Florida. But if not, you know, you guys see something, say something. It's heartbreaking. I mean, we know they're one of the thieves. We've got them caught, you know, but we need the other books, and we need as a community to come together, share the information, you know, whatever you can, contact whoever, talk to your store about it. Look, I saw this video about this guy. Have you seen or heard anything? Because I know if it was if it was turned around, and I know everyone in the video that's going to watch us later and in the chat now, if it's turned around, you would want the community to do the same thing for you. And I mean, that's like you said, we're a very small community, but we're a strong community, and we're all intertwined here. So let's all try to figure it out.
You know, what's amazing is that in situations like this, like talking about the community, there are people that you would think and say, wow, I can go buy that $50,000 comic for $5,000, because I'm sure at some point the thieves, it's all about cash. So it's amazing how it's just not happening. Your store could have bought those books. Mike Banks could have bought those books. You know, I would never have known. If Mike Banks didn't call me, I would never have known they were in Arizona. He could have given this guy the money he was asking, and he could have been holding on to them. But he knows he wouldn't be able to sell them. You knew that your guys, Gotham City, wasn't going to be able to eventually sell them. So you guys passed on it, you know, and Mike worked it out that they were taken back by the police. So there are people. I'm sure there are still people out there that would say, you know what? Hey, I'm going to buy some of these books, and I'm going to put them away, and I'll hold on to them for 20, 25 years, and I'll sell them down the road. It's not going to happen, because it's red flags. They're red flags.
So, you know, someone asked, you know, maybe a possible range. You could give them a number range of the missing books.
What do you mean?
Like, you know, 1 through whatever, or 1 through, they want a kind of a range.
I basically, like, if you go on the registry, I've won awards. I've won CGC plaques and certificates for my books. Like, I think Batman 1 through 100, I think I'm missing 2 books. Or maybe I know I don't have a 1. I mean, and thank God, like I was saying before, guys like Greg Reese and my friend Doug Schmel, thank God there's probably about $300,000 worth of books that I've been paying off that they didn't give me. Thank God they wouldn't give them to me until they were paid off. So I do have some great, great books still in the possession of the dealers. Like my Bat number 2 is a 9.0. I mean, it's like, there's great stuff. But the books that are missing,
yeah,
Bill, I'll be happy to supply you, and maybe you could post it somewhere of all the missing books. But there's, like I said, there's tonnage. There's 455 of them. 445.
if you were just right now, if they're watching and they watch this, is there like a range you could give them? Just like a very vague range of.
Yeah, let me grab my. Hold on.
I mean, it doesn't have to be specific, but I mean, you know,
I can give you stuff. Like, let me see. Let's see. Like Batman. Missing. Batman 10 through 52 is missing.
oh my God.
Batman 54, 55, 58, 59. I mean, 72 through 79, 81 through 86. I mean, it's tonnage. I mean, it's detectives. I could go to detectives. My detective 38 is missing. My detective 39 is missing. Detective 104 through 133. I mean, it's unfathomable.
So Batman 1 through 100, detective basically 100 to 150.
Yeah, it's funny. They ended up not taking a bunch of stuff. I don't know if they planned on coming back for a second shot, but I was lucky to walk in when I did, and all those are still in my possession.
I didn't hear you say
and
I didn't hear you say Detective 27.
No, it's funny. There's a guy on the CGC registry, like my detectives 20 whatever that first group is, 27 to I don't know what that first group is, but I was always number 1 on the CGC registries, and a guy came in with a detective 27, a great copy. I think it's like a 9.0, I think, something big. And now he took over the number 1 spot for having like 1 or 5 books, and I had like 100, and in all high grade. So because the point system is the way it works, he took away that number 1 spot recently for that one book.
You still have that book though, the 27?
No, I don't. I never had a 27.
Okay.
I never had a detective 27. That would have put me over. That would have put me over the edge.
Well, we've been, I think pretty much everyone's got the gist of things. Is there anything?
Someone just asked about Bat Adventures number 12. I have all my Batman adventures, all those cheaper books, cheaper runs, I still have in my possession. I never put them in storage, but I have only one Batman Adventures 12. I have a 9.8 white pages, and I have that.
Well, I mean, that's a great book and everything, but we're talking, 50 years earlier. So
$2,000 book,
Well, if in closing, is there anything that you want to say to anyone that's watching and everyone, the last kind of final say?
I appreciate everybody listening. If you could pass it along, just keep your eyes open, and when you go into your local stores, or if you hear anything being whispered about, just be on the lookout. There aren't a lot of these books the kind of books that I have in my collection out there. If you look at the registries or the census, even if you look at the CGC census, they're either the single highest graded copies, they're the second highest graded copies, or, there might be, there aren't a lot of 9.4s, 9.6s, 9.8s, 9.2s, 9.0s, these early golden age books. And again, a lot of them are pedigrees, and they all have their markings. And so, like I said before, in or out of the cases, my books will be known. And
when you see it,
all the dealers know. Like if you walked into a store, a show, a convention, all these guys that I mentioned before and that many more know about it. If you were to send it off to CGC to get reholdered or to get pressed or something like that, or to CBCS or wherever, they're going to know what it is in and out of the case. They're going to get a high grade bat, whatever, a bat 15, a bat, whatever. They're going to say, it's going to be a red flag, and they're going to look at my pictures in my books and say, this is one of your books, Randy. So,
you guys, you know, if you see, here's the best way to do it. If you see a Batman book and it looks brand new and it's from the 1940s, make a phone call, even if it's not in a slab. Because I
Please.
tell you, when I saw it, I thought it was right off the shelf. I thought it was fake. I didn't know what I was confused, and I have a pretty damn good bit of knowledge when it comes to comic books. So when I saw it, I was just in shock. If you ever get in that position or you hear anything, please contact Randy or anyone in the description below. All the contact information's there. Thanks everyone for joining, Randy. I appreciate it. I mean, my heart goes out to you.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm part of this whole thing now. You know,
Oh, yeah, hey, you're going to be on the witness stand.
I'm probably going to be in court. This is ridiculous. So
you are. You are a witness in this case. You are going to be. You know, you were the first one before Samurai. You were the first person to see these books, those 5 books in Arizona. So you are. You were right where the whole thing started.
It's kind of weird, but yeah. So again, you guys, if you hear anything, please let you know, you can contact me if you have to, but all the information is in the description below. Emails, and you can go to stolenbatmans@gmail.com. You'll never forget that. Send a message, whatever you need. And that's it. Randy, again, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Stick with me, Randy. Don't go anywhere.
Okay,
thanks again, YouTube and everyone. Please share this video. Let's get it out there, guys. Let's let the world know about this. And we'll see you next time. Okay, thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.